Yeah, that is the selection of Neil Tracy, Ireland's greatest 15 of the professional era. Interesting stuff. It's caused a lot of debate, obviously, and to continue that debate, I'd say Alan Quinlan joins us on the line. Quinny, good morning to you.
Morning, Adrian. How are you?
Good, yeah. A lot of this tends to divide up, obviously, along sort of provincial lines, so we might as well get stuck into it. Let's sort of operate on the basis that you're sitting down to pick an Irish 15. Let's assume that all of the runners and riders here are in their full pomp, in the best of the form of their career, and you're sitting down to pick a team to take on the All Blacks in a final test, let's say. Let's go through it then, sort of line by line, and some of these might be, you might just sort of endorse and we move on. We've got about 15 minutes to do it, but let's see what you think, and let's kick off in the order that Neil has selected them here with Cian Healy at loose side prop. Any debate about
that? No, I think he's been probably the most consistent and best player in that position. I think with power and his overall contribution throughout the game. I think you're splitting hairs with so many people here. There's some obvious ones. I think he's an obvious selection there just for his longevity and bar a few injuries. I think he'd have a lot more caps. The impact I think he's made over the years has been phenomenal.
Are you nudging Rory Best in favour of Woody, or are you leaving
him? No, I'm not. I'm leaving Woody. I think it's probably a difficult one here because, like the loose head props scenario, Claude, Marcus, they wouldn't be too happy with me. I don't think Rory Best will be too happy with me at the hooker position. I just think Woody has the record number of test tries for a hooker, and I just think, barring injuries, and there's probably a contradiction in some of the selections here. I'm basing this off not maybe the scenario of best team of the professional era. I'm kind of what you said at the start. If all these players were fit and available, and I was picking a test team, I'd have to start Woody because I think, his leadership and just the quality around the field and the impact and the ability to score tries and stuff like that as well. So Woody starts at hooker.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much debate about that. There is about tight head and who exactly you would have here. Neil has gone for John Hayes. Would you be... I mean, you soldiered along this guy for a long time. Are you sticking with that, or are you opting for the new shiny thing?
Well, just for any of the viewers to who will be accusing me of provincial bias afterwards, John Hayes is one of my best mates. We're incredibly close, but I'm not picking him. I've changed my mind on this one because the Leinster Brigade will be out attacking me over maybe some of the other selections, but. Maybe because I know Hayes so well and he'll be fine with it. I'm dropping him for Tadhg Furlong. I just think, given what I'm saying about Woody and the impact and that just all-round football ability and the performances in the 3 tests against New Zealand in 2017, I'm going for Tadhg Furlong. But the longevity and the effort and the performances and the consistency of John Hayes was phenomenal, and I was so lucky that we valued him so much in when I played with him for Munster Ireland. He was probably the most undervalued player ever to play for Ireland. His just contribution was phenomenal. A lot of it went unseen, but I think Tadhg Furlong, it's been mentioned so many times, he's just that all-round modern prop who can run, pass, do everything. Scrummaging is superb, and he gets the nod at tight head.
In their prime, is Furlong a better scrummager? Is that what it boils down to?
Yeah, but John obviously had his issues at the start because he was a second row. He went from second row to front row, and Furlong probably, edges. If you went through all the different facets of what's required as a tight head, Furlong probably just... it has that bit more explosive power. You could argue that John is there's so much consistency all the way through in all his performances. But Furlong is probably a better, he's a better footballer. John would admit that himself, but maybe if you're picking a team, some would start John and bring Tadhg Furlong off the bench. But look, I'm putting Tadhg Furlong.
That's the cop out, Quinny. Yeah, go on out of that, Jet.
No. I'm picking Tadhg Furlong. He's the tight head.
Right, well, you're going to make amends then, surely, with another former Munster teammate in the second row, because Neil has gone for Malcolm O'Kelly and Paul O'Connell, and the big argument, obviously, is about whether Donncha O'Callaghan should be in there. What are you doing?
Well, it's between the three of them, really, isn't it? Donncha, Mal and Paul. I think James Ryan probably hasn't played long enough for Ireland. I think if you forwarded this on 5 years, he'd probably be jumping ahead of Mal and Donncha, because Paul... There's probably no debate about Paul O'Connell. There is no debate. So Paul O'Connell is your number 5. Your number 4, basing it on probably balance and balance. You know, if you're selecting 2 second rows, ideally you want to try and pick, you know, a jumper at the front of the line out, someone who's a bit more of a tighter type player, a bit of a bruiser if you like, and someone who doesn't call the lineouts. You know, you have the other second row traditionally is your number 4 jumper. He runs your lineout, so Paul will do that. And for that reason, I'd go with Donncha. There's very little to separate the two because, you know, Mal played 92 times for Ireland as well. 2 Lions tours in 01 and 05. Donncha 94 caps for Ireland. 2 Lions tours 95 and or 05 and 09 as well. So there's only 2 caps separating them. You could say that Donncha started a couple of test matches for the Lions, but because of the balance, I'm going to go with Donncha and put Mal on the bench. Mal won't be pleased with me, but anyway.
Who was a better player in their prime?
Well, they were different second rows, if you know what I mean, Adrian. Like, so Mal would have been, if you were selecting your 4 jumper and your lineout operator, Mal would have been going up against Paul. Now, Mal and Paul played together. That's not to say that those types of second rows didn't play together, because, you know, I played at the World Cup in 03 and Mal and Paul were the second rows. So sometimes you have to... Malcolm O'Kelly was phenomenal. He was an incredible athlete. I remember him, you know, making his debut in 97 and just being so far ahead of everybody else athletically who played in that position throughout the world. You know, his ability to win the line out, make line breaks, and just cover so much ground around the field. So it's hard to say who was a better player because there were different types of second rows. Donncha's work rate, the engine, the ability to you know, just stay at a high level, high tempo throughout a game was phenomenal. His fitness was through the roof. So, and
you've got your red glasses on, Quinny. Let's face it. So it was always going to get tilted in that direction. Let's look at the back row. This is one of the biggest sort of areas of contention, obviously, and we heard in the clip in the lead in there about Sean O'Brien missing out. Neil has gone for Stephen Ferris, David Wallace, and Jamie Heaslip.
Yeah, well, when you pick, again, this is probably one of the most difficult, one of the most. And some of this is just gut feeling stuff. This is like a coach sitting down with his selectors and having all these players available and picking a team to go out and start. There's so many of them, so many variables, and very little between any of the players. It's the vast majority of selections are gut feelings. There's a couple of obvious ones, but when I think about it without over analysing it, the first 3 players that come into my head are Ferris, Heaslip and Wallace. And I think that was probably from the 09 back row that won the Grand Slam. I trained with them and I was involved in that Grand Slam for the 6 or 7 weeks while the Six Nations was on. And, you know, it was probably the first time in my career that I was very accepting that the players ahead of me they were just too good. They deserved to be there. They were playing out of their skins and they were brilliant. In the earlier parts of his career, Wally was kind of on and off. The Irish team, on and off the Munster team, was incredibly powerful. Probably his speed and his pace was second to none. So you could argue that Sean O'Brien is very, very unlucky not to get the 7 berth. But again, probably that longevity and just the impact that Wally made gives him the nod at 7. And you know, Peter O'Mahony at 6 would be unlucky as well. Axel, CJ Stander for his impact in the last number of years. Someone who didn't play hugely and his career was hampered by injury was Dennis Leamy. I remember talking to Graham Henry in 2006 after the first test in Hamilton, and he thought Leamy was the best number 8 in the world. The performance he put on against the All Blacks that night was sensational. So it's about longevity and I suppose impact throughout that career, and that's why Heaslip is at 8.
Okay. No mention of the man who saved Irish rugby at all.
Well, I'd be only embarrassing myself really by mentioning myself there. If you were looking for impacts at different stages, maybe I might slip myself in there for that try against Argentina. But no, I couldn't. Unfortunately, I didn't have the consistency. If I didn't have all the injuries, maybe I might be trying to argue and push my way somewhere in there. Simon Easterby, who was probably my main competitor for a 6 jersey throughout my career, was, he had an incredible career as well, and of longevity and consistency.
Conor Murray, there's no argument for taking him out briefly.
I think overall football and ability and all-round game, I think it goes to Conor Murray, but you have to mention Stringer. He's 98 caps for his country. His impact and what he did for in a Munster jersey and an Irish jersey was phenomenal as well over such a long period of time. And he always gave hope and inspiration to the smaller rugby players who were coming through everywhere of what he achieved. But small in stature, but massive in heart and resilience and temperament, I think, because he was an incredible professional, just phenomenal in the way he prepared and trained and the attitude and the consistency as well. So I think Stringer would be unlucky, but Conor Murray is just he's the full package, really, isn't he? As regards what he's done and what he's achieved, and he's a line starter. And I say some of this would be based on starting for the British and Irish Lions as well. So Conor Murray gets the nod at 9.
That might impact on. I mean, maybe it won't on your next call. Is Ronan O'Gara or Johnny Sexton the better out half?
Can we skip this one?
No, we're going to spend 20 minutes on this one. Let's have you.
It depends what you mean by the better out half. I think Ronan O'Gara is probably the better out half if you're looking at temperament, control, direction, all those kind of things. If Johnny Sexton is a better athlete, he's a better rugby player. He's someone who could play in the centre, could play at full back. Rog couldn't play in the centre really, or play full back maybe, because he was just out half was his position and that was it. And similar to Stringer, he didn't, physically he wasn't, didn't have that physical presence or that impact. But because I played with Rog for so long, I know him a lot better than Johnny. I played a couple of times with Johnny. I've obviously watched Johnny, and he's an incredible player as well. So there's very little between the two. I think, of course, people can argue, and they're right to say that Johnny Sexton was probably, he's more physical and he probably has a bit more power. But I just can't get out of my head that I got up out of so many rucks and the bottom of rucks and you get up off the ground and you see the ball spiraling down the field 60, 70 yards and dribbling into touch and the opposition having to run it backwards. And that was in the back of Ronan O'Gara's kicking game. And his kicking game for me would be better than Johnny's. Johnny's running game and probably ability to break tackles himself would be better. Two incredible players, Rogers.
Is that not more of a case? Is the case that you're not making there on the basis that we're sitting down to pick a team and they're pumped to take on the All Blacks? Should you not be leaning more towards Sexton on the basis of what you're saying? Yeah,
it's a very good argument, because you think if you're playing in Eden Park against the All Blacks and you're going for the natural inclination in your head is pick the more physical player over the less physical. So, but I just think my argument there would be you're still in an incredibly pressurized environment, and traditionally you try and protect your fly half. And I just think O'Gara's temperament was second to none in my experience, and I experienced that more with him than I did with Johnny. So I'd still go for Rog, and the ability to have someone like Sexton coming off the bench after 50 minutes would again be phenomenal. But of course that's one that lots of people will disagree with, but it's one that I have the experience of being in dressing rooms with Rog and being in dressing rooms with Rog in New Zealand as well. And Johnny is an incredible leader as well, but I just think I've experienced it more. And, no matter what happens with the rest of the team, you need your fly half to control where you play and stuff like that. And I think O'Gara just edges that a little bit on Johnny.
Yeah, good luck having that conversation with either of them about telling them that they're out.
There's, I hate these bloody scenarios because so many people, and they do take offence to this. Remember, Adrian, they find that they hear it. They all tell you they don't watch or listen to stuff that's going on in the media. But anyway, sure. Look,
yeah, well, it's not as if we work with not as if we work with either of them.
Yeah,
so it should be grand, you know.
But you know what we should do, Adrian? We should do, Adrian, is get both of them in someday and let them debate out who was the better fly half, and you can be the referee.
I don't think there's any conversation about the centres, so let's not have it between Driscoll and Darcy. The back three then, Dennis Hickie, Tommy Bowe and Rob Kearney. It's probably the wing positions that there might be some debate about.
Yeah, it is. I think Rob Kearney, obviously, there's no real debate. There's no debate there at all. Gervin Dempsey was a brilliant, consistent player for Ireland as well. He probably deserves a mention, but Kearney, for his longevity and what he's achieved, I think for me, Tommy Bowe plays in the right wing. Shane Horgan would be unlucky not to be. Some would argue that he would be pushing Tommy hard there, but I just think for the try scoring ability of Bowe, I think he scored 30 times in 69 caps. I think he was someone who just popped up in different areas around the field. Traditionally, just didn't stay on the wing. Had that height and physicality as well to compete early. So Shaggy was a different player. Wouldn't have had the same out and out pace as Tommy. Incredibly effective player as well, and someone. Again, there could be an argument here to say, well, you're going up against the All Blacks, and Shaggy was vocal and aggressive and in your face type winger who was very, very physical as well. So and a very, very big winger. Shane Horgan scored 21 tries and 65 caps. But I think when you're picking a team, it's like not picking the out and out strikers for in a soccer match. I think you need the finishers there as well. So. Tommy Bowe gets the right wing slot, and again, I'm splitting hairs with the left wing. I think Keith Earls and Dennis Hickie are again your out and out poachers, aren't they? They're the ones who can have that bit of X factor, incredible pace, and can just get the job done, can get tries out of nowhere, and then finish any little bit of space. So, I'm going with Keith Earls here. Basically, he scored 30 tries and 84 caps. Dennis Hickie is 29 and 62. So you could say that Dennis Hickie is more prolific in a sense that less caps and nearly one try less than Keith Earls. But I just find it very hard again for someone I know. So I know both of them well to leave Keith Earls out of it.
Listen, we always assume, Quinny, there's the Munster bias there. We're never going to get past that. We'll always take that as it.
You always assume. You say
I speak on behalf of the off the ball audience here.
Yeah. So do you want my bench as well? We're going to throw in a bench here.
Really
So Rory Best, Marcus Horan, Mike Ross, Malcolm O'Kelly, Sean O'Brien, Johnny Sexton, Dennis Hickie, Shane Horgan. It's not a bad bench now, to be fair.
It's strong.
And there's a small little bit of consolation for those fellas who are going to be given out that at least they make the bench. They might start the test next week.
I'd say when you're talking to Johnny and you're telling him here, I've got a consolation prize for you, he'd be absolutely delighted.
I don't think he's talking to anyone in the media anymore, anyway. Anyone who was vocal about the performance in Twickenham. But he blamed it all on Rog, so that was fine. Rog took the heat for that one.
On that fine note, Quinny, good on you. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads.
Alan Quinlan there with his selection of his reaction and selection to that Ireland professional 15, greatest 15. So interesting stuff. and I'm sure there'll be plenty of reactions to that to come as well over the coming days. By the way, a reminder that you should tune into the Snap later today. It's at 1 o'clock across all our social channels. Ger, Ronan Keane going to be reviewing the NFL draft in full, taking us through as well the winners and losers of that Choppies event. And also, if you haven't already, be sure to sign up to our American football newsletter. It's OTB Club Gridiron. And we've got the very latest content from the Snap there, as well as the latest American football news from both Ireland and from the USA, all up on offtheball.com. We've got podcasts, we've got long and short form video content there as well, all included in that mail shot. So you do want to get involved. We'll hit you up with an email every few weeks and let you know what's going on. You can subscribe at offtheball.com/Club Gridiron and enjoy all that Off the Ball Club Gridiron has to offer. We're going to talk to the Galway hurler Pádraig Mannion next. First of all, John Giles on how he's been coping in recent weeks.